Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Aliens and Angels podcast. And welcome to 2025, the year that things finally start to fall into place. Over the last couple of weeks, I started off the new year with parts 1, chapter 1 and 2 of my new book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors. Today, we will continue to read and discuss part 1, chapter 2. And for those of you who have already purchased your copy, feel free to follow along, add your comments, and ask me questions arising from the content. If you do not yet own your own copy, excuse me, if you do not yet own your own copy, the links for both the Kindle and the paperback versions are featured below in the description. All of my links are featured below. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing, and please do share my content with your friends. And I'm very happy to announce that I now offer channel memberships so that you can receive my perks and also help to support this channel. So today we're going to continue on in my book, Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors. This is not science fiction. This is an actual account of my paranormal life and my contact with not only angel entities, but also with extraterrestrials. And so if you have your book, I recommend you open it up to page 29 and follow along. And if you haven't yet purchased your copy of the book, you can just listen in and get an idea of some of the content that you would find between the pages. And I also want to announce, I'm very happy to announce, I'm also soon coming out with my second book, and it's called Transdimensional 2, Meet the Greys Picture Book. And in it, I worked very closely with AI to help me generate images. I told the AI what I wanted and described the beings, and AI created the images. So these are not original artworks, these are AI generated, but I have well over 250 full-size images for you to look at. And I cover well, first of all, I want to say that I give a bit of an introduction of my own experience with the Greys. We're going to talk about Bob the Grey a little bit today, but also some of my other ET contact. And then I have a whole chapter devoted to other experiencers who have contributed a short writing about their personal experiences with the Greys. So, and also where you can find them if you want to follow their information, experiences, and get more information and follow their content. And then I get into the images. And I don't know how many I have because the book's not quite finished, but I would say over 300 full-size images. They're beautifully done. I've divided them up into categories: male Greys, female Greys, children of Greys, hybrids, human-looking Greys, and also what I affectionately call family portraits. So it's images of mother, father, and children, and they're pretty adorable, actually. I know at first people are pretty shocked when they see images of the Greys, and it tends to cause people to feel afraid. And the purpose of Transdimensional 2 is to help you to see the commonality. So even though they do appear quite differently than us, we're of all the same species. And when you look into their eyes in the images, you will see that they're actually not that different from us. And the purpose of the book is to reduce the fear and to help people get used to other humanoids that look a little different than humans. And let's face it, we have such diversity in human appearance. There's also great diversity in the appearance of other ETs, including the Greys. So I'll keep you posted and I'll let you know when that is out. And it will also be available on Amazon. So today we're going to talk about my adult content. So last week we covered a lot of a lot of stuff. We covered basically my intergenerational contact, my background, who in my lineage had ET contact, and basically how that was passed down to me. And then I talked about my childhood experiences and just paranormal in general experiences that I thought were quite interesting. So today we're going to go page 29 if you'd like to follow along, adult contact. And I'm just going to read directly from the book. Once I reached my 20s, I was feeling socially isolated, and so I joined a fundamentalist Christian religion, got married, had babies, and attempted a normal life. I was looking for truth everywhere but within, and I saw so much shameful hypocrisy within my religion. Due to the ignorance, scapegoating, and the shunning practices of the congregation, it was not safe for me to tell the truth about my supernatural abilities. I even got confused as to whether I was imagining things as I embedded myself into a religion that taught that paranormal experiences were the work of Satan. I actually developed significant health issues from keeping this part of me suppressed. So we see that's really quite common. You know, if we want to fit in socially, religiously, or in any other way, we need to stay tight lipped about our ET contact. But we pay the price for that because it is a part of our actual reality and indeed our shared reality. And I believe that we are healthier and whole beings by sharing our experiences. After I left religion for good in the 1990s, the paranormal experiences continued, but now I was able to accept and even enjoy them. And there were several times when I was able to enter the consciousness of animals. The first time that I experienced this, I was laying on a large, flat river rock down by Stoughton Falls on Vancouver Island. I was on my back looking up when I saw an eagle circling high above me. I felt the desire to see what the eagle saw from its high altitude, and then I saw a flash of myself way below me, laying on the river rock. I felt excited as I closed my eyes and tried to make this happen again. At first, nothing happened, but then I started to see glimpses of myself there, down below me, lying on that river rock, and more. The aerial view was spectacular with a winding river and many small waterfalls surrounding the acres of evergreen trees and a few gravel roads. Over the summer, I repeated this exercise and was rewarded with many brief aerial perspective insights. Another short, sorry, I'm just checking my screen, see if I'm streaming. Hopefully I am. Another short but exciting adventure happened quite by accident a few years later. I was in bed at night with the lights off, but there was a little bit of a glow filtering into my bedroom from the streetlights. My cat started to cause a ruckus under my bed, and I wondered what was going on. Suddenly, I saw through my cat's eyes and found out that she was pursuing a large spider. I was not only surprised that I could see what she saw, but the spider had luminous stripes and spots on its body, which made it quite visible to her eyes. Before this, I had no idea that spiders had reflective pigment, which cats could detect with their night vision. No wonder she was in such hot pursuit. Through these and more experiences, I realized that there was so much evidence to support my metaphysical familiarity that there was in no way that I could be the, sorry, that in no way, that there was no way that it could be the product of my imagination. This led to a deep personal and spiritual crisis. And this is because what I had been denying and suppressing for so long all came to the fore, and I realized this was all real stuff. And it kind of blew my mind. By this time, I was going through a very rough life lesson, and I was consumed with grief and sadness. This significantly lowered my resonant frequency, and I became vibrationally imprinted by the spirit of a man who had killed himself while living in the house that I was now renting. I know this is true because I later made friends with a woman who told me that she knew the mother of the man who had died in that house before I moved in. The man committed suicide in a very specific way, and this was exactly the way that I was influenced to die. Just as I was about to off myself, but before I had the chance to do so, I had a very profound angelic contact experience, which changed my life forever. This was what I call an explosive vision of angels. One voice sounded as 1,000 voices, all speaking in perfect unison. The angels appeared as points of light with luminescence streaming out either side, giving them the appearance of wings. Gabriel, the archangel, came to me, and the message really woke me up to some very different life possibilities. It was then that I realized we have tremendous value, and this is why angels are so interested in us and deeply love and cherish each and every one of us. Interestingly, I just want to add that I didn't find out that it was Gabriel actually until years later. And there was a series of synchronistic events that led me to understand that this was Gabriel, the archangel. But more about that later. I soon learned that the beings from the angelic realms love us unconditionally, and there is nothing we can do to change this. All we must do is have a willing spirit and desire contact to initiate the relationship. At this level, all parts of our life journey are sacred and fuel for soul evolution. We are intimately known, and nothing is hidden from these ones. Gabriel told me that I could leave earthly life if I wished to, because there are exit points that each human can make use of when the going gets too rough for us to handle. Life is not meant to be unbearably painful. Gabriel alluded to the point that suicide is never unforgivable. However, I was told that if I wished to stay here on earth, they would send me a helper, and it was up to me to choose my helper, and I was amazed by this suggestion. I replied that I needed time to think about this offer. I had never heard of this before, and I wasn't sure if I was worthy or what the best kind of help would be. I was then told that when I was ready, to just tell them, and they will know because they are never far away. Angels are incredibly merciful and patient. After thinking about this proposal for a couple of days, I decided on my gift, wisdom. I thought about all the things which would give me the perception of power, money, popularity, beauty, but I knew these were not what I needed. I chose wisdom because then I could be of real benefit here on earth and know what to do to make a successful life for myself. Another thing that seemed strange at the time is that after I chose my helper, I was asked, I was asked if I wanted the quick method or the slow method. I know this sounds really strange, but this is how it came to me. I didn't really comprehend what I was being asked, so I quickly answered, the quick method. I later found out that we learn from our experiences, and rather than just have the wisdom poured into me, I had to live the kind of life experiences that would teach me to become sagacious. I soon found out that the quick method was the most intensive path, and at times I wondered if perhaps I had been too impulsive in my choice. This led to much challenge and inspiration, but throughout it all, I was never alone. I was soon able to complete a college diploma in women's studies and a university degree in social work with distinction as a straight A student in 2004. even though I had very poor reading comprehension skills. It was while I attended university that I learned from a course in psychology that memories are corruptible and what we remember affects our quality of life. So I decided to do an experiment. I frequently regretted that although my mother was obsessed with controlling the details of my life, she was not much interested in actually getting to know me as a person. I remember that when I came home after school, she did not give me eye contact or pay attention to anything I had to say. So I decided to create and insert a false memory, which made me feel better about my childhood and my relationship with my mother. In great detail, I imagined that when I came home from school, my mother would make us tea and then give me all of her attention as I told her about my day. I embellished this false memory further by adding that if I experienced a bad day at school or was feeling down about something, then she would get out the good tea set and offer me some kind of sweet cookie to eat along with my tea. I knew this was I knew that sorry. I knew this never actually happened, but as I created this piece of fiction, I noticed that I felt better and held less resentment toward my mother, so I kept practicing. I never told another living soul about this experiment. Then, one day, about 6 months later, I went to visit my mom. We were having a little visit, not discussing anything in particular, and suddenly she stopped what she was saying and abruptly turned to me and asked, Karen, do you remember the tea parties we had after school? This blew my mind. I realized in that moment that reality is flexible and that our thoughts really do affect the quantum field. This experience led to many questions like, did I time travel and change my past? This wouldn't be the first time. Or did I insert my memory directly into my mother's mind? Or did I jump timelines? I don't have any answers to these questions, but I do know that I'm happier for my false memory, and I recommend this technique to other trauma survivors. Later in 2007, I was able to survive a horrifically botched surgery, which resulted in significant physical disability, mental torment, and loss of life skills and community. But although life threw me a lot of curveballs, I was able to overcome each obstacle one at a time and cope with the assistance of my spiritual guides. I have always been connected to my mystical mentors and remain connected to this very day. Among other adventures, and for 30 years now, I work for Archangel Gabriel from December 21st to March 21st each year, fulfilling missions and completing exercises for soul development. So, this is ever since that initial angelic contact. I just, every um, winter solstice, I just agree that I'm going to work with Gabriel and I allow myself to be directed. And interestingly, this year I was directed to put together a picture book, Transdimensional 2, Meet the Greys picture book. So I just thought that was interesting. The timing, it always happens this time of year. And I always do as I'm directed, and I always reap the benefits. Continuing on page 32. Then about 2011, I started to experience telepathic ET contact again. The feelings of intense love that I received from them indicated that these beings were benevolent. I was not afraid, and I just knew that this contact harmonized with my pre-birth life agreements that I had set up before I was born. I also recognize that I have extensive communication with these beings beyond my three-dimensional fleshly body, and my higher self regularly communes with them, whether I'm consciously aware of it or not. Lucid dreams with remote viewing are a regular feature of my contact experience. Sometimes I receive spontaneous knowledge and downloads. It takes seconds to receive a spiritual download, but it takes time to unwrap and synthesize the data. For example, I received the basic concept for the Quantum Health Transformation Program in an instant, but it took me nearly 2 years to unpack, which actually was downstepping from the abstract to the concrete, the concepts, and to create the program. Then in 2012, I received the call to level up and notice earth changes, physical, political, and spiritual. In 2013, I received a major spiritual download and began using the Nubby Ball tool. And then in 2014, I received the rest of the Quantum Health Transformation download. Around the same time, I became aware of my involvement in some ongoing exopolitical ambassador work. I did not travel there physically. I remained in my bed sleeping, but my consciousness was definitely transported to the big ship each night because physical presence is not needed to do the ambassador work. At first, it was unsettling to wake up in the middle of the night to use the washroom while also being present at meetings aboard the big ship. Although it bothered me at first, my ET associates didn't seem to mind at all. About 2014, I also had experiences aboard the big ship, which felt very physical. It is important for me to mention that there is a time differential between Earth time and interdimensional time. I was taken to the big ship every night for about 3 months of Earth time, but I experienced it physically as more like 3.5 years. Time is different there, and their sense of time is not bound by rotation around a sun, like giving us 24 hours in our day. This experience was similar to the times when I am outside of my physical body, where time and distance do not exist. So it makes sense that I was returned before waking up in the morning, even though I experienced being gone for weeks. More about this later in my book. I have no physical proof of my off-world adventures, but I do have some very vivid memories, and I have learned a lot. I also have the 9 steps to quantum health transformation, and I recently published version 3.0, which is now available absolutely for free from my website and other social media platforms. Further, just to be clear, I was not using psychedelics, cannabis, or any mind-altering pharmaceuticals at the time of my ET contact. After this, I began to do more research, found out about Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 movement back in 2015, and I was greatly encouraged by Paul Hellyer and the Disclosure Conference, which I found out about at the same time. As a result, I started to meditate more and reach out for additional ET contact. I am just going to double check and make sure I am live streaming. Oh, I am. And am I live streaming on Rumble? I am hoping that I am. Let's just have a look. And I am. Okay, thanks for your patience, everybody. So now I just want to quickly talk about some of my real-time UFO sightings, and then I'll get into a bit about Bob the Gray. It is interesting that many people report that they have contact experiences soon after seeing UFOs. I am no exception. Here's an overview of my physical, real-time sightings while sober and fully present here on Earth. The first is called Headlights Over the Water. I was driving up the Vancouver Island Highway one evening after dark. I was getting tired, so I pulled off to the side of the road to take a break. It was too dark to recognize any of the surrounding area, but I knew that I was overlooking the ocean and possibly some nearby islands. Soon I noticed two lights which looked like headlights on another car, which would have been facing me at a distance. I thought to myself that there must be a nearby island with a parking lot facing the highway. I later pulled back onto the island highway, but realized that as I drove north, the headlights kept pace with me. I immediately knew that this was not another car, because if it were, it would have to face in the same direction as me, and both headlights would not be so clearly visible. It was kind of thrilling as the lights kept pace with me for about 10 miles until I came to a nearby town. I knew that there was nothing out there but water, and this must have been a UFO. Just to be sure, the next time I drove up island, I stopped at the place where I first saw those headlights. There was nothing out there but water and the coast way off in the distance. My next sighting I call cigar-shaped interdimensional craft. I just happened to look up one day, and way up there in the sky, I saw a metallic gray, cigar shaped object. Less than a second later, a circular rainbow appeared at one end of it. The rainbow then slowly engulfed the object, and the craft appeared to shorten as it was drawn into the circular opening in the sky. Once it completely disappeared from sight, the rainbow portal disappeared too. Next, saucers at dusk in the clouds. And you can watch for this yourself and you'll see what I mean. Many times I've seen saucer-shaped objects sitting within the clouds at dusk. As the sun sets, it casts an interesting kind of light up to the clouds, which often begin to look somewhat transparent. Just before the sun disappears below the horizon, the saucer-shaped objects become very visible. Another sighting I call the fireball. Again, while traveling north on the Vancouver Island Highway, just north of Nanaimo, I noticed a big, sparkling, golden copper-colored ball with a short tail, which came down out of the sky on an angle and landed out of view at the top of the low mountain range to my left. I was about 100 yards below the impact site, yet there was no noise, no vibrations, and I seemed to be the only one who noticed it. When I got home, I did an internet search for any news about a comet or other space debris that may have been reported in the North Nanaimo area, but there was no news about it at all. Orbs of all sizes. I have seen many orbs of various sizes. Some appear to be small and some very large, even 6 feet in diameter. They do not appear to be solid or metallic. One day I was sitting on my bed and I saw one roll through the wall, across the room, and then pass through the outside wall. I've also seen other orbs appear in the sky, and I'm not sure if they're smaller or they just appear to be smaller as they are farther away. And I've never personally interacted with them. When I see a UFO or some paranormal thing, I'm usually just kind of freeze and I don't think anything. I just watch because I'm kind of awestruck. So just to finish this bit off, I get a funny feeling before I see a UFO. Like when you get the urge to look at the clock and you see 11:11. This might be an interconnection of consciousness, or I just happen to look up at the right moment. I also believe the beings on board want to be seen. Otherwise, why use lights at night? I am sure they have the technology to fly in the dark. Why else become visible at all? And I'm just going to check to see if I have any comments. And I do not at this point. And so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a little pause and then I'm going to play a 2-minute promotion for my book. And then I'm going to come back. So stay with me because we're going to talk about Bob the Gray. And he's the main attraction for this episode. And I know you're going to love hearing about him. He's different than I have never heard any ET experience anything like what I had with Bob the Gray, and I'm sure you'll appreciate hearing about it. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Stay tuned, and then we'll carry on with the show. Transdimensional, meet the new neighbors. Check out my new book available from Amazon bookstores worldwide and read the stunning details about ET diversity and culture, along with their advanced ways of living and expressing spirituality, which is in no way like anything imagined here on Earth. Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors introduces you to many different ET beings, the healing pods, the interior of the big ship, my orientation process, cultural events, and off-world mating practices. When I tucked myself into bed for the night back in 2014, I had no idea that I would be transported to the big ship, meet many different extraterrestrial races of beings, become well acquainted with their culture, and visit numerous interesting worlds. While away, I learned a great deal about the big ship, intergalactic and transdimensional travel, intergalactic planetary research, and the various options for resettlement. My true life adventures continued night after night, and I had never experienced anything like this before. The first few times that I awoke back at home, I convinced myself that it had all been some kind of a fantastic dream. But while away, I was eating, sleeping, learning, and visiting, all the while experiencing what I perceived as days, weeks, and months. I am so happy to present you with my true nonfiction account of my weird little life and the more important messages from beyond our realm that I have been tasked to share with all of you. It is my hope and sincere desire that I will inspire you to acknowledge your own transdimensional abilities and experiences so that together we can become the change we wish to see in our world. Paperback and Kindle editions are now available at all Amazon bookstores. Go to the Amazon website, select the bookstore or Kindle store, and enter Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors by Karen Holton. The Audible version is coming out soon. And we're back. So I know you're going to want to pick that book up as soon as possible. It's a fascinating read. And that's why I am using this month and probably part of next month to actually read to you from it so you can get an idea of what you will have when you pick up the book yourself. And as I mentioned before, please do bring your book with you when you attend the lives so that you can follow along and then post your questions in the live chat or comments, and I'd be happy to include you in the conversation. So now we're going to talk about Bob the Gray, and very excited to introduce you to Bob the Gray. So Bob has been my friend since about 2014. He appears similar to a stereotypical gray, but he has more pronounced bones around his eyes, and he seems taller. His skin is very pale, almost white, and his nose is very small. As far as I know, I have never seen him physically face to face. He appears in my mind's eye, and we maintained a consistent psychic connection until a couple of years ago. When I needed him or had a question, he was here. Initially, my contact with Bob started back in 2005. But since I did not understand that this connection was a real thing, because sorry, let me start that again. Initially, my contact with Bob started back in 2005. But since I did not understand that this connection was a real thing, because I only consciously saw him in my mind's eye, I thought it was my imagination playing tricks on me. I didn't pay him much attention, and one day I started to make fun of him. And then he disappeared until I was ready to take him seriously in 2014. Then I felt bad for making fun of him once I realized he was a real thing. So, just to add a little bit to this, so I was seeing him in my mind's eye. I was getting telepathic communications from him, but I didn't understand what was going on. I honestly thought it was my mind playing tricks on me. So I just started making fun of it thinking that it would make it so it didn't have the energy, it didn't cause fear. I don't know. And then it stopped. And I thought, see, it was my imagination. But then in 2014, he was back. And then I realized he was a real thing. Bob made himself available to answer my spiritual questions and reveal details about my ET friends, the Intergalactic Resettlement Program, and the Big Ship by assisting me to release my memories and for facilitating remote viewing sessions. Although he is an ET, Bob has a higher station, somewhat like the angels. I believe Bob is the one who arranged for me to become an exopolitical ambassador and then later part of the intergalactic pre-settlement program. It is interesting to note that the last time I visited the big ship via a remote viewing slash astral projection session with Bob's assistance, my ET friends on board knew that I was there. Contrary to the stereotype, Bob has a sense of humor. Early in 2020, I was taking a deeper look at him through the portal of my imagination, and he superimposed a great big toothy human smile onto his face, which took me by surprise and made me laugh out loud. His intention was to get me to lighten up and to prevent me from becoming frightened by his true appearance. Bob has revealed to me that he and his kind wear dark contact lenses to mask and protect their large physical eyes, because for them, direct eye-to-eye contact is intimate, sacred, and personal. The contact lenses also protect them because their eyes are very light sensitive, and this is why some grays appear to have enormous, solid black eyes. Bob showed me that they use something that looks like a padded lounge chair to facilitate deeper contact. I don't know how they work, but I believe these boost their telepathic abilities and help them to focus on specific individuals over vast distances or dimensions. He doesn't really have a name, at least one that I could translate into English. But we agreed that I could call him Bob, and he definitely has a sense of humor. Bob's appropriation of our 20th century culture includes a passion for music by Frank Sinatra and Michael Jackson. He says their music has the same energy patterns, which give him the sensations of an uplifted mood. He is also what I call a snappy dresser because he presents as wearing black slacks and a black turtleneck sweater, and sometimes he wears a black fedora hat just for fun. I have not had contact from Bob in the last couple of years, and I believe that he is assisting others who are new to this phenomenon. I will always remain grateful for his assistance, and I am sure he will make himself available if I need him in the future. Now, I know a lot of you are laughing at this and going, how ridiculous, grays aren't like that. Well, how do you know? And, most people are just because of the physical differences, or they discount their own imaginative ability to make contact. They take this, I think, overly serious because grays are beings. They're not a different species, they're a different race. And just like some of us have terrific senses of humor, why wouldn't grays? So I think we do ourselves a disservice by stereotyping them. And I think that we need to keep our minds open, that there's all kinds of physical diversity, but also differences in personality and temperament and all that as well. Why wouldn't there be? It's unless they're just like automated, I don't know, manufactured things. I don't know, but I see them as real beings, real people. So now we got a few minutes left, so I think I'll get into, and I don't have any questions from the chat, so I'm going to get into my pre-birth agreements. All of my life experiences have prepared me for my work as a quantum mechanic. When you need your car fixed, you take it to an automotive mechanic. But when the timelines need work or renewal, a quantum mechanic is needed and often more than one. Quantum mechanics usually follow direction from their higher selves and spiritual guides, and sometimes these directions manifest within our reality as urges, compulsions, intuitive directives, or spontaneous knowing. These people are open to directions that might not make intellectual sense to the rest of us, but we know that this action is important, and so we comply. In this way, we help to repair, correct, or collapse timelines. You could consider this lifestyle a calling. And so I'm continuing on page 37 here for those that are following along. Just like the butterfly effect from chaos theory, we can make huge improvements to the social and physical reality by making minute changes to our daily routine and life. You might wonder what this might look like. We may simply get the urge to go and be at a specific place at a specific time, or to go talk to someone who is a complete stranger to us, or to know we must do some personal shadow work, or give some cash to a homeless person. And it could mean taking another route when we go for a walk, or just to stop and hold sacred space for a few minutes during our day. There are all kinds of people living all around the world who share in this type of work. One of the most striking results that I have noticed from performing quantum correction is the ability to clear up intergenerational dysfunction and trauma, which helps to collapse negative patterns. This work is not easy and can be fairly unpleasant at times, but it makes such a difference in the now, prepares the way for a healthier future and for healthier future generations, and this has a direct effect on the future timelines as we build and create robust societies. In effect, the old negative patterns are slowly weeded out as the things that work well are strengthened. Course correcting in the now guarantees us a more positive future. Further, in order to accomplish my pre-birth agreements, I am gifted as an energetic wide receiver, and my contacts include interdimensionals, ETs, angels, and more. I can tap into whatever group or being that has a job for me to do to help correct our timeline and help to establish the new positive timeline. I'm not tied to any one specific interdimensional group or race. I am available to help out as needed by various groups and beings from many interdimensional realities. Basically, you could say that I work for Holy Spirit or universal consciousness. And based on my own experiences, I believe that our health, psychology, and spirituality must be upskilled and evolved to increase the likelihood of taking part in full ET contact. And more about this later in the book. Okay, I'm going to try to finish this chapter so we can actually get into my ET experience in chapter 3 next week. Page 38, my higher purpose. Understanding our higher purpose makes our life's mission so much easier, but it took me a number of years before I remembered what my true objective was. In about 2013, while going through some depression, I was having difficulty navigating my way through the social reality. I felt quite deflated, and I was forced to my knees in surrender as I implored my spiritual guides to share with me my true purpose for being here. I knew that I was part of a divine plan, but what this might look like was not yet clear to me. The answer that I received was simple yet profound. My reason for being here is to love and to allow myself to be loved in return. No training and no discipline required. I remember feeling so happy and free because I knew that I could do this. My overall purpose was not complicated and was totally achievable. We on Earth have been given a very distorted view and understanding of the true meaning of love. Before I continue with more aspects of my higher purpose, I feel it's important for me to speak to what I consider to be love. Love is like a basket or container. It is a composite of attributes, intentions, and behaviors, sometimes called virtues. Anything else is not love. Love includes love, joy, peace, patience, mildness, kindness, self control, faith, and goodness, all at the same time. Love includes having warm affection for others while we see them just as they are, as whole, complete persons with warts, bumps, and all. This is called unconditional love. Love begins within. Love towards self is essential before we can effectively externalize love toward others. Love is the hallmark of all higher beings, including ET, and their reality is based in the love harmonic. Love creates a dimensional reality which is conducive to health, harmony, and true positive soul development. Beings that are of lower frequency cannot enter or have any lasting effect on those who vibe on the love harmonic. Love conquers all. After learning more about true love, I began to understand that included within my higher purpose is the objective to help anchor in the divine feminine. Everything within our three-dimensional reality starts off with a binary system, which includes male and female counterparts. We need both, and we need them in balance and harmony in order for us to have successful lives. But what do I mean by the divine feminine, and how do we anchor this in? Do we start to act and feel more feminine? Well, not exactly. Let me explain. I'm talking about spiritual energy here and not social customs. The divine feminine is only a part of what constitutes universal consciousness and all of creation, and it exists in harmony with the divine masculine. The divine feminine offers the creative force, while the divine masculine offers structure and protection as things become manifest. In math, this is called phi, and the Fibonacci sequence, which unfolds in the fractal spirals of all physical creation. So you might want to do some research on phi and Fibonacci, and you'll see what I mean. Many thousands of years ago, humans lived in a matriarchal or mother-dominated system. And then, due to conflict and war, the system was overthrown and the patriarchy, or father, was given prominence. Instead of establishing a balance between the feminine and the masculine energies, mother and father, that would produce justice and harmony, the divine feminine was despised and held in subjection to the contorted patriarchy. Eventually, the divine masculine lost its energetic balance, and our whole mainstream history tells of the cruel and often bloody rule dominating reality right up to our day. This has led to left-brain dominant societies that value logic and science over the right-brained creative forces, talents, and abilities. Under the patriarchy, religion replaced spirituality. Men were given more rights and privileges than women, and society dominated women with concepts of ownership and law. Especially in the past few hundred years, education has required the overdevelopment of left brain thinking, and we all became totally out of balance. This only benefits the parasite class and their social, political, economic, religious construct. So, how does this relate to anchoring in the divine feminine? This term means that we can no longer suppress our feminine energies and must spend time each day developing our right-brained creativity. In this way, we strengthen our spirituality, psychic gifts, and ways of knowing, which are intuitive instead of logical. Love is not logical. but it is essential to add more balance and harmony to this world. Anchoring in the divine feminine also involves accepting the masculine aspects of ourselves and the world we were born into, all the while adding more creativity, music, artistic endeavors, spirituality, nature, and empathy into our lives. Eventually, we must strike a balance and become more of who we really are, symmetric whole beings. In this way, we restore harmony to the three-dimensional reality because everything we do affects the whole. And as a result, we again help to collapse, correct, and initiate new timelines. This quiet, behind the scenes work is away from public view and is mostly unappreciated by our fellow Earth citizens. It is a very personal work, and you will not see it advertised or proclaimed by virtue signaling individuals on social media because it is part of the internal work that we do. This spiritual work could be considered the hero's journey. Further, I work closely with the morphogenic or holographic field, which I call Mother Father, the living ultra conscious earth, my higher self in the eighth dimension, my soul team, which is made up of ETs, interdimensionals, ultradimensionals, angels, elementals, ancestors, and even other disembodied earth people. This may sound like quite a lot of contact, but I receive different kinds of connections from different beings at different times, in different ways, for different purposes. I find it best to just go with the flow and not try to categorize things too much. For those of you who may not be familiar with my terms, I suggest you do some research. But here is a brief overview. The morphogenic or holographic field, which I call Mother Father, is all that is all-knowing and is ever present. It is infinity and eternity, manifesting at the same time. Sometimes people call this God or Holy Spirit, but since the word God is a title, I usually call this nuonum universal consciousness. It is holographic, which indicates that all things that we perceive are emergent. Just as our shadow is a two-dimensional reflection of our three-dimensional selves, likewise, our three-dimensional selves reflect our higher dimensional selves, which we may not recognize at all. Morphogenic refers to the creation of all we perceive through a field of created standing scalar waves. These emerge from the wavicles and are made from positive, negative, and neutral energy wave particles drawn up from the sub-Planck level. I call this Mother Father because it includes both female, creative, and male, structural energies, which appear as the golden ratio, and as I mentioned before, Phi and Fibonacci. In practical terms, as part of universal consciousness, we all share creative abilities. When we focus on something and see it in specific terms, we collapse the quantum field and the other options disappear. The morphogenic field the morphogenic field of infinite possibility collapses, and we are left with only the awareness of our chosen outcome. For further details, I suggest you do some research into simulation theory. Next, let's explore the living, ultra-conscious Earth, which is the planet we sometimes call Gaia, and this includes all spiritual and conscious elements. All living and non-living components, which make up the interior and exterior of our Earth, produce frequencies that have an energetic effect on the whole. This includes the individual consciousnesses, which emanate from all living things, combining to create the consciousness of the whole and this produces sound in a specific bandwidth to create things in particular ways. We are part of a very complex energetic system, and everything is connected. You might think of this as being a cymatic symphony. Okay, we're quickly coming to an end of the show, so I will just probably just okay, I'll read one more paragraph and then we'll leave the tail end to next week, and then next week we'll start off with chapter 3. Now let's consider my higher self in the 8th dimension, which includes my 3-dimensional conscious self and many of my alternative conscious selves, as we experience life in many different timelines, which make up the multiverse. Like the layers on an onion, it also includes my 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th dimensional self and my deep subconscious self. My higher self is my complete self, and all components work together to ensure a total opportunity for soul development. Our 6th sense acts like a bridge to the realms of our higher levels of self, so that we can access the support and wisdom we need to progress. Just as our 5 senses provide self-preservation for the body, our 6th sense provides self-preservation to our mental, emotional, and spiritual selves. As we develop our 6th sense, we find that we are not individual units, and we're certainly never singular entities or alone. So I'm going to leave it off there. Next week, I am just going to finish off the tail end of this chapter. I'm going to give you some descriptions of the terms I've used in this book, just to give you a clearer understanding of where I'm coming from. I'm going to talk about ETs, interdimensionals, ultradimensionals, crypto-terrestrials, angels, elementals, ancestors, and disembodied earth people. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about how I'm able to be in contact with all these beings. And then we're going to get into chapter 3, which is actually about what I learned aboard the big ship. And I just want to quickly show you a little close-up image. There's Bob the Gray, handsome looking guy. And really, once you get to know the Grays, you're going to realize there's nothing to be afraid of. So I think that they are extremely misunderstood. And again, that's why I'm coming out with my second book, Transdimensional 2, Meet the Grays picture book. And that's why it's mostly pictures, so that you can consciously get used to humanoids that look different than us. And the things that make Grays different than humans is, number one, they appear to have no skin pigment, but they actually do have skin pigment. But the difference is that their pigment does not reflect light as recognized in the color band or the bandwidth of the color spectrum that our eyes can detect. So just because our eyes can't see them as having color doesn't mean that they don't actually present as being of different colors to different races and different beings, perhaps even cats that have a different bandwidth of the color spectrum that they're able to detect. The other thing about Grays, there's a lot of diversity. They kind of range between 3 feet tall and 8 feet tall. And different people have had different experiences with different races of Grays. So one person might say, oh, there's no such thing as a hybrid program. Nope, I've asked my beings. They say there's no such thing. Other people have had great experience with the hybrid program, even contributing to the hybrid program and producing their own hybrid offspring. It's because there are many different races of the Grays. But once you understand what they're about, what their intentions are, you find out that is where they're very similar. And it's my hope to reduce the fear when it comes to the Grays, because once we reduce our fear, we can think more logically, we can be more of who we are, and stop running around in mass panic. And then we cannot be manipulated by the, let's just say, nefarious forces here on Earth, be that human or otherwise. And so that's it for the show for today. Thank you so much for joining me on the replay. And even if you're listening in the background today for the live, and of course, those of you who are listening on an audio podcast, I want you to know I appreciate each and every one of you very much. And I've loved bringing you this information. And again, please do put in the comments if you have any questions or anything you want to add to the discussion. And next week, I have Phil Warder on the Quantum Guide Show. That's on Wednesday at noon Pacific, 1 o'clock Mountain, or 3 p.m. Eastern Time, if you want to come back for my other show. He's very interesting. He's had a lot of interdimensional contact. He's like a shamanic healer. And he has had contact actually with the mantid beings, which I have no experience with whatsoever. So that'll be an interesting show on Wednesday if you want to join us. Come back next Sunday to hear more from my book. And please do bring your books along and read along, and it'll be a very interesting discussion. So that's it for today. I'm going to say bye-bye. Hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Sending out much love and healing to each and every one of you. It's going to be a great year. And I'll just say bye-bye for now, everybody. Take care. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available on Amazon worldwide. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. The like button and leave me a comment. And please do share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you'll also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.